friends, and happy National Tell a Fairy Tale Day. I like that one. It also happens to be National Pistachio Day, which is probably a little easier to say, but not as much fun. It's National Pistachio Day, but more importantly, it's National Tell a Fairy Tale Day. So everyone, if you have kids, tell them a fairy tale. Make up your own. I always have fun doing that. I haven't done it in a while, though, but we always used to tell these stories, and we kind of have, like, ongoing stories, and me and Arlo and Jack, and, we'd kind of build our own little stories, and they'd continue, like, each night. And we need to do that again. I haven't done that in a while. So thank you, National Tell a Fairy Tale Day, for reminding me of something good. So welcome back. I haven't been on here for, I guess, almost a couple of weeks now. May actually be 2 weeks or close to it. It's been at least a week, because I was off for last week, off of work. I did work Monday, but I had some vacation days, and I kind of needed it. So I used them for the rest of last week after Monday, and I had 6 days off in a row. That was, the first time I've had that in a while, and it was nice. It really was, and I needed it. And for, fans of me, I guess, you have probably been following along, and you know that we have been very active on the YouTube channel. It's Talking Sports at Work at YouTube, or, youtube.com/@talkingsportsatwork, or just, you probably already know, but we've been pretty active on there. We've been doing a lot of new stuff on there, actually. It was just similar to the podcast, but I did some videos of me and the kids just playing games, because that's inexplicably something that people want to watch nowadays, which, excuse me, that's it. That's a thing, that's a conversation in and of itself. But I know when I was a kid, that was like the worst thing you could do, is have to watch someone else. Because, when I was a kid, I remember the games that were still, sometimes there were, one-player games that you had to take turns with, your friend or your sibling. In my case, it was my cousin a lot of the time. We had to take turns playing, and so having to watch someone else play, it was like the worst thing in the world. But now people want to watch people play video games, so hey, whatever, I'll take advantage of it. So yeah, anyway, I did one of those, and it immediately got much more attention, many more views, anything, much more exposure than anything else I have done, podcast, YouTube, anything. Like, within a few hours, it was at triple-digit views. And so, that's something that we're doing more of now. And, I think I can still hopefully sort of stick to the sports theme, and we can maybe play, we put some Madden stuff on there. Jack loves Madden. Of course, I love Madden. And here in a few months, we're going to get a new college football game, and that's something else to talk about, but we'll save that for later. And yeah, maybe we can play NBA and baseball. We've got all the sports games, so maybe we can do that and sort of stick with the sports theme. But for now, I'm still kind of discovering, I think, what it's going to be on the YouTube channel. And if it does go more towards us playing games together, I'll probably end up changing the name, because Talking Sports at Work already doesn't make a ton of sense for me doing videos not at work. But, hey, we've got time to develop that. So, I hope everyone has had a great February so far. Mine has been good. Started off kind of rough just because I hate this time of year. I'm a fall person, and this is like the opposite of fall, and it's been way too warm all February. It's been like early spring, and I don't know. I like cold weather, and so anyway, it started off kind of sucky, but then, I took that week off last week, and that's really sort of done exactly what I hoped it would do, which is sort of, give me a chance to reset and, sort of rebalance, recenter, refocus, get my perspective back on track. And yeah, it just gave me some time to relax and well, a lot of time to get other stuff done and build up, the other things that I'm trying to do. So yeah, it's been good. So as far as actual sports topics today, we do have a few things to talk about. I was listening to the radio this morning, like I usually do, listening to sports radio. And one thing is Peter King. Oh God, here we go. This thing's about to mess up. I don't know what it is. Oh boy, I got to tell you, I did not miss that. The random interruptions and technical difficulties of trying to do a podcast on the go. But back again. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. NIL is going to be, I think, the main topic of today. We got some really good news on that front. I personally have been investing a lot of my time, um, and whatever on researching NIL. And I may have already said this, but I wrote an essay on it for a class that I'm in right now, and so I've done spent a lot of personal time, looking at NIL, researching it, learning about it, writing about it, and we got some big news on that front today. Or well, actually, it was yesterday or sometime. I don't know, sometime over the last couple of days. Might have been Friday now that I think about it. Anyway, got some big news on NIL. Also, Peter Keene, who is one of my favorite sports people, is retiring. He announced this morning. So that's kind of sad because I love him. Peter King, a longtime football writer for Sports Illustrated. He does the MMQB Monday morning quarterback thing. He's on NBC Sports with Mike Florio a lot, who I also love. And so, yeah, the sports world is going to be losing a big time contributor, a guy who's helped tons of people's careers, a guy who has really changed a lot about football reporting. So, good for him, good for his career, and I'm happy that he's going to get to go fishing or whatever now, but also sad that we're going to be losing him. And then we had some draft stuff to talk about. We've got 2 months to talk about draft stuff, so we're going to dive on into it. Oh, that's something I meant to do. I've played around with these little mock draft things. You can just Google mock draft or simulator or free mock draft or whatever. And I play around with them, but I keep meaning to actually do one for real and save it and be able to share it and talk to you guys about it on here. I didn't do that. Maybe I'll do that sometime over the next couple of days and then do another episode tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday. I'm off Wednesday, but I might do it on the YouTube channel. That might be good because then I can actually share it on the screen. That's a good idea. I'm going to do that. Excuse me. So, but yeah, we've got some draft stuff to talk about. The big topic there. What are the Bears going to do? Are they going to keep? Everybody's kind of leaning. A month ago, everybody was the prevailing thought was they're going to keep Justin Fields. Pretty quickly, it shifted to what I've been saying all along, which is they should draft Caleb Williams. Now, there's a lot to that, though, and we'll dive into that here in a few more minutes. But first, wanted to talk about my own, do my little TMI thing, which I've gotten away from that. I don't always do it anymore. But, now that football season is over, I think there's probably more time because I'm not a big basketball fan, certainly not a big baseball fan, although I am getting back into baseball for the first time since I was a kid, which is fun. They've made it more interesting now. They've actually they've accepted progress in sports, and they've decided to move into the 21st century and no longer chastise guys for having personalities and, actually embrace making the game fun and exciting and faster. And, baseball fans and baseball people are the most they cling to history and cling to tradition and cling to the old ways more than any other, group of people that's not, I don't know, MAGA or something, but more than any other sports fan base. College football people are kind of that way too, which is another aspect of the NIL thing that we'll get into, but they're not even to the level of baseball people. But baseball is becoming fun again. And so maybe we'll have some stuff to talk about there. But anyway, what I was saying is, I figure I'll have more time just to talk about my personal whatever now that football season's over, but we'll also have plenty to talk about in the off season as well as with basketball, because especially right now the Vols are killing it, and the NBA is well underway. But what I was thinking today is, and this is something that I know, I don't know if there are multiple people who listen to this from work. I know there is at least one friend of mine from work who does listen to this, and I don't know if he'd want me to say his name, but thank you for listening. I don't know if there are any more than him, but I usually don't talk about the specifics of my job on here for a variety of reasons. Well, a couple of reasons, I guess. But anyway, I just usually don't. But today, that's the main thing on my mind because I've been away for a week, and while I was gone, there were some big changes. And this is something that we've known has been coming for a while, this kind of thing, because it's weird. Our station is very it's not a traditional station for what this company normally has. It's very small. We're just out of a small building in Cleveland here, and it's a relatively, it's a small group of people. I think there are probably only like 20 people who work there. I'm not sure the exact number, but it's something like that, and only, I think, under 20 routes. And so, we're a tight knit group. We all know each other. We're all friendly and comfortable with one another. And that's a big deal for somebody like me who's not usually, super sociable and comfortable around a lot of people. But, it's really just a great situation. And it's unusual. Most stations for this company are not like that. They're big and they're not as comfortable and casual. But, our small little thing, we perform really well. We do our jobs really well. We work well together. And so for the most part, we're just kind of left alone and they let us do our thing because we do it well. But now there are some big changes coming in the company as a whole, starting at the very top. And that's trickling down to everywhere, including our little station. And apparently we are, because we've always got sort of this lingering fear in the back of our minds that eventually they're going to close our station. They've been closing other stations for a while. They've been condensing. They've been whatever. But, you know, since before I started working there for years and years and years, there has been that constant sort of possibility that eventually they're going to say, okay, enough with this little station. Even though they do their jobs well, it's, not good to just have this one little station there that's different than everybody else, whatever. So they're not closing our station, but we are going to be losing an area. We don't know which area yet. It does feel like my area is one of the more likely ones to go, though, because it is one of the furthest out, the furthest from our station. And it feels like if they're going to take some area away, it's going to be something on the outskirts of, what we do. And so it does feel like my area is one of the most likely, and that sucks. And if that happens, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I've got, but here's what I'm getting at with all of this. We've always kind of had that fear that, they're going to close our station or they're going to start trimming it down or they're going to combine it with this other branch of the company that is not nearly as good or as employee friendly. And that is happening on the grand scale. The companies are combining. But, we've just always had it really good. And so I was talking to my boss about it this morning, and we talked for a few minutes right when I got there. And then, he got into it with everyone else about, but they had already known, but evidently they had more questions. And so it kind of became like a group thing. And so then everybody else left, and I hung around, and I talked to him for several more minutes about it afterwards. And it was really nice because, well, he and we've always been really friendly and I would say friends. But we got to where things were really tense between us for a while because they had been screwing up my pay for months and underpaying me. and I had been having to fight with him and with payroll and with everybody to prove it and to get it fixed. And so everything was kind of tense between us. I was mad at him for a while. He was irritated with me for a while. And so it sucked to kind of lose the friendship, the relationship that we had had. But, now it feels good just to have that back again. But more than that, or well, in addition to that, it was nice talking to him because he's taking the perspective of, look, we kind of have always felt like this thing, and I even said it, my thinking is it's always kind of felt like this might be kind of too good to be true. And he was taking that same perspective and saying, you know what, I'm just going to look at it as, let's enjoy this while we've got it. We've got an incredible situation. We've got an incredible group of people who work really well together. He was saying, of all the places I've ever managed, you guys by far are the best and work together the best, and things just go smoothly. And he's just kind of trying to take the perspective of, you know what, let's just enjoy it. There's nothing we can do to stop these changes. There's nothing that we can do to prevent them from taking routes away or shutting our station down. So let's just enjoy this time while we have it. And that's kind of the perspective that I've been trying to take all along, because I've always known this is not what I want to do for the rest of my working life. If that were the case, I wouldn't be in school right now and, doing the other side things that I'm doing. But it's nice to hear someone else kind of echo that same sentiment and remind me about it, I guess. To just say, I'm just going to enjoy this ride while we can. Hopefully it will continue to last and, we can keep going. But, if it doesn't, then it doesn't. And there's really nothing we can do about that. But, just appreciate what we've got here. And that's what I've kind of been feeling like all along, because I've known that eventually I love this job. I do. But it's not what I want to do forever. I don't make enough money, although I don't do, it's not like I do relatively well with this job, but not where I want to be. It's not the level of, it's not a lot of things that I would want, but I do love it. I do enjoy it. And so I've kind of been trying to take that perspective all along. Let me just enjoy this while I can. I know that eventually I'm going to finish school. I'm going to have that degree. I'm going to have to go back to a more traditional job, or I'm going to, start working from home and not be around people that much, or I'm going to have to go back into an office setting where I am around people all the time. And either way, it's going to be something that I probably won't enjoy quite as much as I do this. I might make more money, I might be more successful, but I won't enjoy it the way that I do this. So I need to just try to be grateful and appreciate this ride while I can. And so it was nice to hear someone else sort of have that same sort of perspective on it, I think. And like I said, even to remind me that that's the perspective that I need to have. So yeah, there might be some big changes coming. We're not going to know anything for sure for probably at least another couple of weeks. But if there are going to be any big changes for me personally coming, I will of course keep you guys posted on that. And we'll see. But either way, I am going to start looking for plan B. I am going to, I have a couple of things that I could start doing which I've been planning on doing anyway, to start making some extra money. And I need to really dive into those things now and sort of suss it out and find out how much I can make, and if it would be something sustainable or something that, if I lose this job, that I could continue doing or fall back on. So yeah, but I'm gonna have to start coming up with some contingency plans. But yeah, hopefully, nothing will change for a while. Hopefully I can just continue on my route for another year or so, but we'll see. And either way, I'm going to try to enjoy this while I can, and we'll go from there. So anyway, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be back, and we'll talk about some sports stuff. All right. Hey, friends, back again. So before we really dive into the NIL stuff, which I think is probably going to be the bigger topic of today, um, or at least, for me, I was going to talk quickly about um, some of the draft stuff, was really just one topic about the draft, because like I said, I think I'm going to do a mock draft and then, maybe share that and put it on the YouTube channel or talk about it on here or both sometime within the coming days. But at the top of the draft, that's the big topic of conversation. What do the Bears do? Now, I have been of the opinion all along that they need to take Caleb Williams, and it's not because I think he is a generational talent. I don't. I don't think he is the next Patrick Mahomes. I do not think that he is, as a prospect, on the level of Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck or anything like that. But I do think that he is about as close to a can't miss quarterback as you can get without being that generational talent, without being that very tippy top of the John Elway, Andrew Luck category. I do think that he is a solid, no doubt, number one overall type of quarterback. I think he's like a level ahead of Jared Goff and maybe around the Joe Burrow level in terms of being a prospect. Of course, not the same player at all, but just in terms of the quality of the prospect and how the likelihood of him turning into a franchise quarterback, I think he's about on that Joe Burrow level. And we see how that worked out. So I think if there is a guy like that and you have even a question at the quarterback position, you take that guy. It's the most important position in the sport. It is the most important position in all of the major sports. There's nothing to even compare it to in basketball or baseball, because your entire everything is going to be determined by your quarterback. He is the guy who touches the ball every play. He is the guy who your success is determined by this one player. Now, are there exceptions? Well, sure. Sometimes teams win with great defense and an okay quarterback, but you've got to at least have an okay quarterback to even have a chance. So if there is a question and if you have the ability to answer that question, you do it. And with Justin Fields, look, I like him. I liked Justin Fields going into the draft. I said all along that he's the second best quarterback in this draft. I don't know why people's opinions had changed on him. I mean, I know he wasn't great in the last couple of games there at Ohio State, but before that, the consensus was it was Trevor Lawrence, then Justin Fields, and then everybody else. And for some reason, people started liking Zach Wilson, and I think that was Trey Lance that year, maybe. And it just, I don't know why people soured on Justin Fields, but it felt to me like all along he's the second best quarterback in this draft. Now, though, he hasn't been great as a pro. And my thinking is, if after 3 years you're still not sure, he's not your guy. And I can speak from personal experience on that because we've had that recent experience with a guy named Mariota. We actually gave him 5 years. And still, going into that 5th year, we're unsure. But we did everything. We built a great team around him, built a great offensive line, gave him weapons. And that way we would know in that 5th year, that final, option year, if he is the guy or not. And that was the year where we made the switch to Tannehill and everything got better from there. But if you still don't know going into year 4 if this is your quarterback, the answer is no. He's not. Now, does that mean that he's a complete bust? No. He could go somewhere else and be successful. I think if you put him on the Steelers or maybe the Falcons, or put him with the Patriots and give him some weapons, maybe. But I don't think he is. And really, here's what this comes down to. And we can analyze this from every possible perspective, look at all the ins and outs, dissect this as much as possible. In the end, there's only one question that needs to be asked here. Which one do you think is going to be better? Caleb Williams or Justin Fields? Who's going to be the better quarterback? Don't think about potential trade value. Don't think about draft position. Don't think about salary. Don't think about anything, because none of that matters when deciding the future, the face, the franchise. Everything that is going to be your team will be determined by this guy. So don't think about anything else. Who's going to be better? Is it Justin Fields or is it Caleb Williams? And I think the answer to that one is pretty clearly Williams. Not to mention the fact that once you do start asking the other little questions and looking at the other elements, he's better too. He's going to be a lot less expensive for 5 years, whereas Justin Fields, he's going to cost you a lot very soon. Um, Now, the other thing that the one advantage to keeping Fields, of course, would be you could get a lot of trade value, trading back. In fact, it was Peter King who talked about a potential move for the Bears where they trade back to 2, let the Commanders move up and get Caleb Williams, and then they trade back again with the Falcons to like 8, and then they would still get the 8th overall pick, and as well as they'd have like a buttload of first and second round picks over the next 2 years. Now, if they were going to keep Fields, then yeah, that would be the right direction. But I still am of the mindset that Caleb Williams is worth more than all of those picks. I truly believe that. Unless you are going to use one of those picks. Hey, sorry about the interruption again. But anyway, what I was saying was, really in the end, this comes down to one simple question. Who do you think is going to be better? Who's going to be the better quarterback? And I think the consensus on that would be Caleb Williams. Can you get a buttload of draft capital for that pick if you wanted to make that kind of move? Yeah, absolutely. Is any of that going to be worth having a star franchise quarterback? No, it won't. It feels like it's a simple decision for me. Now, is that tempting? Yeah, that's really, really tempting to know that you could get a dozen first and second round picks almost over the next couple of years if you played this right. But again, none of that compares to a guy. And plus, another thing that I think you have to factor in here when trying to predict what the Bears are going to do is who it is making this decision. Look at the Bears' recent history. Look at, they are still the team. Now, everybody's, we don't remember it. It's not as much in the forefront of our minds as it once was, but they are still the team that traded up to take Mitchell Trubisky ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. They are still that team. Now, it might be a different, coach, and I think it's a different front office largely, but that's still that organization. That's still what a lot of the fans, a lot of the people there remember. That hasn't been that long ago. They are still the team that traded up one spot to take Mitchell Trubisky with Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes there on the board. That's not something you get past quickly. Now, again, it's not maybe on the forefront of our minds anymore like it was for a few years, but that's who we're dealing with here. That's who this organization, that's who this fan base is. This is the team that still has not had a franchise quarterback that I can remember, really. I mean, you go back, who's the last franchise quarterbacks the Bears really had? Was Jay Cutler was close? They made a Super Bowl with Rex Grossman. They didn't end up winning it, but, they had some success in the 80s with great defense and Jim McMahon, who was an okay quarterback. But, the game's very, very different nowadays. The Bears have never really had this a kind of guy like Caleb Williams looks like he's going to be. I think you've got to factor that in when you're thinking about what are they going to do. This is the team that thought they had their guy and passed on 2 superstars, one who's a generational, maybe the best to ever do it, and the team who took another swing on Justin Fields and horribly mismanaged him. I think they've got to go and get their quarterback. So, but in the end, like I said, it's really just boils down to that one simple question. Who do you think is going to be better? Who do you think is the better pro quarterback? That's it. So, anyway, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back and we'll dive into some more stuff. All right, friends, back again. So, I'm going to go ahead and start winding down, wrapping up today's morning segment. Um, I'm gonna have an interruption here in about 3 minutes too, because I'm gonna have a timer go off on my phone. Um, but really quickly, I just wanted to talk about the NIL situation right now. Um, and there's a lot to dive into with this because, like I said, I've written an essay on it. I've been reading a lot and studying a lot about it. We've got a lot dealing with it right now, Tennessee fans. But the biggest news of the week was, and I think, excuse me, I'm sorry, keep getting kind of. Let me take a sip of something here. So, Lord, I hope I'm not getting some kind of sick or something. Jack has been my son has been sniffling now for like the last 3 days and had a runny nose and nothing too bad, but just his nose has been running really badly, and I think it might be like an allergies thing. It's with this early springtime coming up, and maybe I'm getting something like that too. But we got the ruling in on Friday, I think it was, that the NCAA can no longer enforce NIL rules because Tennessee and Virginia attorney generals had sued them over their investigation into our handling of, Nico Iamaleava, who is now, the entire hopes of our football program. And they had basically launched this investigation into us because he flew on a private jet to come visit the university. Apparently, that's what the main aspect of this investigation is about. That was like some illegal benefit or something. And I think there's more to it that still has not been released yet, but that's at least the one big element that we know of. So, of course, we're going to fight back. I can't believe that Florida State didn't fight back more when the NCAA started investigating them for, NIL violations, because there are no real rules to this. The only things that they basically 2.5 years ago, um, hang on. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so 2.5 years ago, they accepted, because of all the lawsuits and all the pressure against them, they finally accepted that student athletes can now profit from the use of their name, image, and likeness being profited on, which people who don't like that, people who think that, that it's ruining the game and that they should just remain totally unpaid amateurs, I don't understand that. I don't understand that thinking at all. Now, I get the thinking that you don't want to turn them into employees and make this a professional thing, but that's not what's happening. There is a middle ground, and that's what was supposed to be, theoretically, NIL was supposed to be that. Because if you make them employees and everybody gets paid, that makes it an entirely new thing. And, it might not turn into a bad thing. It might end up being okay, but it would completely change everything. Now they are no longer just students. They are paid athletes who, would have, more rights as employees and have to have health benefits. And, it would just become a whole thing. But, it felt like the good middle ground. And this is something I had said over a decade ago. Why don't we just allow them to profit from the use of their name? And, if you're putting their face on a thing that you're saying, if you put their face on a poster, you put their names on a jersey, you put their image on a video game, how is it legal that they don't get a piece of that? You're making billions. I mean, I wish I had the figures in front of me. I have that all in my essay, and if I were able to pull over and look at it, I would, but I'm not going to right now. But, I mean, billions of dollars. The SEC and Big Ten alone raked in multiple billions of dollars each year, largely on football. And they're making all this money. The media people, the athletic directors, the the people at the top of these universities. They're because it's not just like the money's going to the schools. I mean, ESPN is raking in billions off of this stuff. All the people involved are making all this money on unpaid labor. They're making it on the backs of these people who are not getting a piece of it. That seems unconstitutional to me. That seems un-American. That seems completely against the idea of capitalism. But anyway, but that's another discussion, it feels like, in itself, because I really don't understand the argument against it. But I do understand how people are a little upset with the current structure of NIL, because there is no structure. There's no system. There's nothing in place. They basically said, okay, these students can profit off of the use of their name, their image, their likeness, but we don't really know how it's going to work. So let's put in some very vague and, of course, completely arbitrary rules, which basically what the rules boil down to is this. The student has to provide some sort of service to receive money. So he has to make an appearance on a car commercial, or he has to post something on social media to promote this business or this organization or something. The student has to do something to earn this marketing money, basically, and it can't be used as a recruiting tool. If there were, that has got to be, as soon as they put that in place, if there was some word that I could think of that could completely encapsulate a massive eye roll, that's the word that should be used to describe it. Who in their right minds actually believed that this would not be immediately used as a recruiting tool, and that literally every university in existence that has football programs and basketball programs was not already doing this to some degree? They were already they were already paying these students. They were already doing things under the table, and they were using it. Places like Texas A&M, they had that big thing not too long ago. And they were already using it to recruit. So now you're going to say, okay, we can do it all to some degree above board, but don't use it as a recruiting tool. These kids already have these deals worked out, negotiated, ready to go before they commit to these universities. Of course, it's a recruiting tool. It was always going to be a recruiting tool. So to put a rule in place like that is completely stupid and arbitrary and pointless and counterproductive. Everybody, if they're going to investigate Tennessee and Florida State for that, then they may as well go ahead and launch investigations into literally every single university with a football program, because everybody's going to do it and is doing it. So that's it, though. That's what they said. And they've made changes and adjustments, and now they're trying to basically go back and enforce rules that were not in place when they say these violations happened onto us. And it's really it's a mess. And the NCAA is losing respect. It's losing authority. In fact, I think college football should just become its own thing. I'm not saying that necessarily they should have paid players, paid employees, but I do think that right now ESPN and the SEC and the Big Ten have the authority, have the money, have the power to just break off and say, let's be done with the NCAA. We don't need them anymore. It's pointless. And I think that's what's eventually going to happen. That these major conferences, along with the media, mostly Disney, ESPN, they're just going to go ahead and break off from the NCAA and say, we don't need this shit anymore. Let's do our own thing. And so for the NCAA to now take another big blow on this, with the courts basically saying you can't enforce this at all because it is illegal. It is violating antitrust laws. That's got to be a big blow, because now not only is the media and their member universities and everybody saying these rules are stupid and pointless and vague and ambiguous and make no sense, Now you've got the government, the Supreme Court of the United States, saying, yeah, you can't enforce these rules. They're ridiculous. So I don't know where we go from here, but I know that it's a win for the University of Tennessee. I feel like it's a win for student athletes because the NCAA is still trying to basically prevent them from. It's pointless. It really is. So Charlie Baker, I saw him on something the other day, and this was after I couldn't be sure if this was recorded before or after the ruling came out, but I think it was on a college basketball game I was watching, and they showed an interview with him about something. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember thinking, I wonder if this interview was done after or before he heard about the Supreme Court ruling, which I don't know if it was like the Supreme Court of the United States. It was probably more of like a more local somewhere federal court, but it was a federal court ruling that the NCAA could not enforce NIL rules at all anymore until this shit got straightened out. So now they are going to be forced to put in place some sort of common sense structure, some sort of actually applicable and usable system that makes sense, or I don't know where they go. I don't know what's going to happen. But the NCAA is every year, now it feels like every month, losing more and more authority, losing more and more respect, and instead of trying to embrace this modern system that they are now forced to allow and trying to come up with a system that works for the student athletes, that works for the big universities, that works for everyone. They just want to keep trying to come up with completely pointless and arbitrary rules and then try to enforce them when they know that nobody's abiding by them. Yeah. Anyway, I'm pulled over right now. I had to stop here for a second. I am about to be at my destination, so yeah, that's my rant on that. But anyway, so the Vols got a win there in court. I don't know where we're going to go from here, but NIL was already kind of a chaotic, creating a Wild West sort of thing in college football, and now if they're saying that none of their rules can be enforced, I don't know what's going to happen from here on out. But anyway, and another thing really quickly, I looked at my notes here because it's something I heard about on, they were discussing it on some sports radio talk show the other day, was wondering if, people were going to quit watching football. These college football traditionalists who say that NIL is ruining the game, if they're really going to quit watching it, and if that would matter at all. And the answer, I think, at least to the second one, is no. Nobody's going to care. This has become maybe the second biggest sport in America, college football, only behind the NFL. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that college football now has the status and the money of any of the other major sports. Basketball, MLB, hockey, college football now is right up there with those. So is it going to matter if some group of assholes says we're not watching it anymore? Nah, nobody's going to care. It's the same with the people who said they weren't going to watch the NFL anymore because the people were kneeling during the anthem. All right, who cares? If that's the statement you're going to make, is basically just depriving yourself of football, good luck to you. You think the NFL's going to notice or anyone's going to care? Nope. And so it's the same way with these people. If they want to say that they're not going to watch college football anymore because these kids are making money and, it's ruined the game or whatever, I'd like to hear an actual argument that makes sense against this. But, if those people want to say that, all right, good luck to you. College football is going to be just fine. They won't notice you not being there. Anyway, so if you have a perspective, any of my handful of listeners or however many I have now. If you have a perspective on that and you'd like to share it with me, call me, text me, comment on here. I'd be very interested to hear it. So I want to thank everybody for continuing to listening. I'm continuing to listen. I am going to actually get to work, and I will be back this evening in what for you will be several seconds and what will be for me several hours. So talk to you again soon. All right, hello and good afternoon, friends. It is 4:34 p.m. and my day is complete, so headed back. And yeah, I hope everyone had a great Monday. I shared some stuff with you guys this morning that's kind of got me a little worried, a little stressed out. I don't even remember, honestly, how much detail I went in with you guys, but basically, the future of my job is a risk, and excuse me, and that's not me crying. That's just my usual getting shit in my throat. But yeah, so it's stressful. It's worrisome, and I'm not necessarily struggling financially, but I'm certainly I wouldn't say I'm thriving either. And I don't know. I mean, if I get laid off, the thought just occurred to me earlier while I was talking to my ex-wife. I was talking to her on the phone a few minutes ago, and the thought occurred to me that if I get laid off, I think I would at least qualify for unemployment. So maybe I could get that and then do gig work if I need to. But you know what? I mean, I'm going to start coming up with contingency plans if I have time tonight. If not, I'll be off on Wednesday, so I can dedicate that day to finishing my semester, because this is the last day of this term. I've got one more assignment to do, and that'll only take a few minutes, and then dedicate the day to coming up with what's next. And I was thinking about it too, in that often I can be very indecisive, and especially when it comes to major life choices, I often need a push, or I won't make a change until I'm forced to. And so I've kind of wondered at times if that was going to be the case with this job, because I do enjoy it. And even though I know it's not what I want to do for the rest of my adult life, I like it, and I worry that I'm going to end up, finding a job that pays better and, that's maybe more prestigious or whatever, but it's going to be a more traditional job where I have to go in an office and sit inside and be around a bunch of other people, or something where I'm just stuck at home by myself all day. One of those extremes. And that I'm going to look back on this and regret making that choice, regret giving this up and making that jump. But, if I'm forced to, if I lose this job, well, then at least I won't have that regret, right? I mean, that'll be something, I guess. But, this might be that impetus. That might be, the push, the ignition, the starting event, whatever that pushes me to go ahead and move on from what I know I'm not going to do forever. And, maybe like I was saying earlier, I can just take what's left of this time and appreciate it and try to enjoy it as much as possible and be grateful for this job that I love, where I get to drive around in the mountains all day, but go ahead and start planning for life after this. That's really probably how I'm going to look at things. And now, it's entirely possible that this isn't going to happen, that I'm not going to lose this job. In fact, talking to my boss this morning, he was telling me that he actually believes it's more likely that a different route, not mine, would be the one that ends up being taken away. And he went into some detail about that, about his thinking, and I don't know if he will have any input on it, but it sounds like if they do ask his opinion, he's going to suggest that other one. But, according to him, it would make a lot more sense for that one. So, but I don't think he's going to have any input on it. In fact, I'd say the decision has already likely been made. We just don't know it yet. So, it's entirely possible that that I'm not going to lose this job. But even if I don't, the writing is already on the wall. Like I talked about, it's always felt like our station is this weird little fleeting thing that's just barely kind of hanging on the, outside of the, higher ups awareness, but we do our job, we perform well, but we're just this small little station that is very different from the rest, and it's a very tight-knit group of people that work well together. I mean, it's not like we're all super close, but at work, we are. We're friendly, we work well together, and, it functions well, but it doesn't fit into what these stations have been for a long time. And so, it's kind of always felt like there's, it's on the edge, and it's always possible that we're going to find out that it's coming to an end. So I kind of forgot where I was going with that, actually. But anyway, I mean, I guess what I was saying is, even if this most recent threat doesn't immediately take my job, these upcoming changes within the corporation as a whole are nothing but bad for us. There's very little chance that these changes are going to be good for us. And it's most likely going to eventually lead to either the closing of our station or it being converted to something, our jobs being converted to something different. And essentially, there are changes likely coming. Now, is it going to be in, 3 weeks? For me personally, am I going to lose this job in 3 weeks and get a severance package or whatever? Maybe, but maybe not. And if that doesn't happen, though, there are still going to be changes coming, and they're probably not going to be good. And so either way, I need to start going ahead and moving on and planning for what's next. And, I've still got a while, because I had to cut down to one class at a time as opposed to 2 classes at a time when Lydia and I split up. So I'm still not going to graduate for another, I don't know, I ought to look at that, but I think it's maybe still another year. If I was able to to go back to 2 classes at a time, I would have already graduated. I think I would be graduating like this month, maybe. Actually, this might have been my final term if I would have been able to continue doing the 2 classes at a time. I can't remember. It may have already happened, but either way, God, I wish I could. Maybe, and, I've got I don't know. But either way, like I said, I need to start coming up with a plan, and I won't be able to use my degree yet because I don't have it, although I do have an associate's degree, so maybe that'll count for something in getting another job. But yeah, I mean, I know that there are jobs out there I could go get that I could make more money than what I am right now. But I don't even consider it because I enjoy this, and I don't think that it would be so much of a difference financially that it would be worth me giving this up right now. But then again, I haven't really looked. I haven't looked indeed, I haven't actually gone job shopping in a long time. So I'm going to start testing the waters and seeing what else is out there. You guys wish me luck. And, hopefully, eventually I'll be able to, I won't be forced to leave. I won't be forced out or fired or laid off or whatever. I will be able to make the choice and the move voluntarily when I'm ready. But who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But it does, the one thing you can expect is change. So we'll see. Now, anyway, got all that personal crap out of the way. There was one more thing that I wanted to talk, and then I will let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your evening or your day or whenever you're listening to this. I don't know. But if you are listening to this, I love you and I thank you and I appreciate you. The one last thing is the new AP men's basketball poll came out, and Tennessee Volunteers are sitting at number 4 now, which means the assumption is we would get a 1 seed going into the tournament. Now, there's still a lot to happen, and we've got 4 games left, and honestly, I guarantee you This is the hardest 4-game stretch that any team in the country faces to end the season. I guarantee you there is no other team in college basketball that is going to face a tougher final 4 games than Tennessee. We've got Auburn coming up on Wednesday. Then we're at Alabama on Saturday. Then we're at South Carolina, who's better than anybody expected them to be, the following whatever the next game is. And then we finish the season with Kentucky at home. Now, of those, and all of those 4 teams are in the top, somewhere in the top 18. Now, of those games, I was looking at the schedule and thinking about it a little earlier, and obviously it's hard, you never can predict what's going to happen, but Auburn is probably the most complete, toughest one of those opponents we will face. But we do have them at home. We will be prepared for them. We have been on a roll lately, and there's the Bruce Pearl factor with the familiarity, and playing Auburn always means a little bit more because of him, and so I think the fact that that's at home, we should hopefully, and of course we will be a favorite in all of these games, unless there's some big injury or something happens. So I'm hoping that we were able to get that one. Then the next one, I think the 2 that I'm most worried about are these next 2. It's Auburn, because they are the second best team in the SEC, I think, behind us. And then after that, at Alabama. That's going to be tough because that team can shoot the lights out at any point. And a team that can shoot like that can beat anybody anytime if they are making shots. But that's what it all depends on with them. They are very much a 3-point shooting team. I think they're an analytics-based team, so they're going to be doing the layups, the free throws, and the threes and that whole thing. And if they are hitting their shots, which they're going to be hitting more, they're more likely to be making shots at home than on the road. We could be in some trouble there. So I am worried about that one just because they can be so effective scoring. But we also have one of the best defenses in the country, so hopefully that'll cancel that out, at least enough for our scoring for us to score more points and win the game, I guess. And then you've got at South Carolina. I'm not as worried about that one because they're not going to be sneaking up on anybody anymore. They beat us earlier in the season in our own building because nobody knew that South Carolina was going to be worth a shit this year. Nobody expected them to do much, and they kind of snuck up on us, and they snuck up on Kentucky, and it seems like they beat somebody else, one of the other really good teams. I don't know if it was Alabama or Auburn, somebody else. But, they're not going to be sneaking up on anybody again. So I think we should, and plus you factor in the revenge factor there, I think we will take care of business at South Carolina. And then Kentucky to end the season. Kentucky, when they're on, they're one of the best teams in the country. They're a national championship contender, but they're so wildly inconsistent that you just never know. We already beat them pretty handily in their own building when we played them earlier this year. And they're one of those teams, kind of like what I was talking about with Alabama. If they're on, then they're going to be tough to beat. But a team that's that young and that inconsistent and that seemingly immature is really going to struggle at Tennessee to end the season with our defense and the way that we've been playing and all of our, the experience on our team. So of these 4 games, which again, I guarantee you is the toughest 4-game slate that anybody's going to face to finish the regular season, the first 2 of them are the 2 that concern me the most, but all of these are going to be tough opponents. And if we come out of this next stretch 3-1, I think, and assuming we do well in the SEC tournament, I think we should still get a 1 seed. If we win all of these games, then honestly, I don't think it really even matters what we do in the SEC tournament. We will get a 1 seed, and I guarantee you we'll at least jump to number 3 ahead of Connecticut, who nobody really wants to believe in. I still don't really know why, because I'm not as familiar with college basketball like on a national level as I am other sports, certainly not college football or the NFL. So I don't know that much about UConn. I watched them a little bit and watched some stuff about them because game day was it was at their building this weekend. But I don't really know. But what I do know is that they've been one of the best teams in the country for the last 2 years. They won the national championship last year, and still nobody really wants to believe in them, it seems like. Like, they started the season way down the rankings, like really low for a team that had just won the national championship. And remember last year, nobody really expected them. Like, I think they were a 1 seed, but they barely got the 1 seed, and everybody kind of considered them the weakest of those 4 teams, if I'm remembering correctly. And it felt like, that was the year that it was wide open to win the championship. And if Ziegler hadn't gotten hurt, which that's a whole other discussion, and I'll get to that in just a second, actually. But UConn's a team that, for whatever reason, it feels like they just keep kind of overachieving or outperforming expectations. But maybe they just really are that good. I don't know. But if we go 4-0 in this stretch, we will definitely jump ahead of them to number 3. I would imagine it wouldn't shock me if we jump Purdue as well. Although they did beat us earlier in the season, that was, way earlier. It's different circumstances, different teams now. That was before we really figured out how to play with this new elite scorer that we have. I think if we played Purdue right now at a neutral site, we beat them. Houston, man, I've watched them for the first time. The first full game that I'd watched Houston all year, I watched over the weekend, and man, they were impressive. It was that game where they were just wiping the floor with Baylor, who was ranked 11th, and in their building, and they were just demolishing them. I mean, their defense was smothering. And then Baylor obviously came back in a big way in the second half and almost won it. It ended up going to overtime, and then Houston pulled away in overtime. But, man, they look like they're for real. So that is one team that I think is definitively deserves to be number 1, and, yeah, they're tough. But in the SEC, Tennessee is clearly the best team. And this is what I've been saying about Tennessee. It feels like for years now. The one thing that we've been missing is that elite wing scorer, a 3 or a 2 guy who can score, who can shoot, who can create his own shot. And I know that's not a small thing to ask for, obviously. I know that, everybody wants it. But it's been like that's the thing that we're missing, and that's the thing that we've been trying to get with, because we keep getting these big-time elite 5-star recruits after, Rick Barnes had been around for a few years, and we became very successful as a basketball team. He started getting these really big-time recruits that were 6-7 kids that had that scoring ability, and I keep expecting one of them to be that guy, and none of them were. And so far, pretty much all of them were one-and-done guys, and they get drafted, and I don't know if any of them are really doing anything in the NBA right now, but none of them lived up to that hope as a freshman. So instead of doing that, this year we went and got one from, the Division II ranks and got a transfer, and he is that dude. And, of course, nobody saw this coming. Nobody thought Dalton Knecht could be this good against, Division I SEC competition. Otherwise, he would have been super-duper recruited, obviously. But, I mean, this dude is ridiculous. He is exactly what we've been wanting. And the fact that we had pretty much the whole team come back last year. Last year's team was a national championship caliber team. If Zakai Ziegler hadn't gotten hurt there at the end of the season, especially with the way things shook out there, we would have at least made the Final Four and would have had a very good chance at winning the national championship. But he got hurt, and, things went the way they did. But now, almost that entire team came back. He's back. Vescovi's back. Adu is back. And now he is better than ever and is going to be an all-SEC player. Like, he is not only that great shot blocker and rim protector, he is a big-time scorer on the inside as well. Like, he has become a true offensive threat out as a big guy, which is another big bonus for us. But all of those guys came back. Triple J came back and is looking as good as ever. Excuse me, I had to get a drink. So, pretty much almost that whole team that was already national championship caliber last year is back this year. And Awaka and those other guys, he was the other one I was trying to think of. But all of those guys are back, and we add one of the best players in the country and probably the best pure scorer, the best scorer from the wing position of anybody in the country. You add that guy into the mix, and we also got kind of 2 of those guys. because we've been searching for that, it feels like, for years and not landing on these guys, or, these prospects don't develop. And now this year we go to the transfer portal instead and get 2 of them, because the guy who's kind of been unsung and nobody's really noticed has been Gainey this year. Like, if it weren't for Connect, Gainey would probably be the number 1 or number 2 scorer on this team. Like, he's really good too. He's not nearly that elite level, but he's really good too. So, I mean, this team we're the best team in the country. And we've still got that elite Rick Barnes Tennessee defense. We've got, an all-defense, all-SEC point guard, an all-SEC big guy in the middle, and Adu. We've got depth, and we've got an All-American and National Player of the Year candidate who can score from anywhere at any time on anybody, and is going to be a lottery pick and probably going to be a good NBA player as well in Dalton Connect. This is exciting. I mean, this is the best team that Rick Barnes has had since being in Tennessee, and it's maybe the best team Tennessee has had that I can remember. I mean, this team is as good as those Grant Williams, Admiral Schofield teams, and we've got this elite outside scorer that we never really had before. It's just so much fun to watch. So, pay attention to that. Root for the Vols. We've got 4 games left in the regular season. Then we've got the SEC tournament. And if we win 3 of these games and beat Alabama, then we'll win the regular season SEC championship, and then have a chance to go on and win the SEC tournament as well, and be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So, really, really fun stuff on Rocky Top. And, it's about basketball. And, it's also good because the football team is winning too, because honestly, when the basketball team was good and the football team still sucked for those, several years, it kind of felt like, I don't want to say hollow, but it felt like sort of a lesser thing. Like, it's like, okay, I mean, we're not necessarily a basketball school yet, but, the basketball team's doing well, great, but the football team, that's what really matters, and that sucks. But now that the football team is back to being good again, now the basketball team being this good feels even better somehow. I don't know. But anyway, that is enough for me. I think I ended up going over an hour today, which I was hoping not to do, but I do want to thank everybody who listened. Check out the YouTube channel. Lots of new stuff. Actually, something new coming on. I've got scheduled to come out today at 6 p.m. as well. It is Talking Sports at Work on YouTube. Follow me or friend me or whatever on social media. I am at HDW Pursley. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. Hope you have a great Monday. I will be back probably sometime later in this week, and I will definitely be back for an episode on YouTube on Wednesday, most likely. So, anyway, thanks for listening, and love you. Bye.